Hello, everyone. Could I write the next James Bond film? I know this is an unusual subject to talk about, but because they may make a new James Bond film, I've often pondered what it would be like if I wrote the next James Bond film. Of course, given the fact that I am an independent author who has no connection to the film industry whatsoever, um, I would never be appointed that task, even though I do think that some people who work outside of Hollywood could offer fresh perspectives that aren't considered within that bubble. And so, to me, when people say there aren't a lot of writing talent, well, I disagree. I think there is a lot of writing talent. It's just that it isn't always in Hollywood, and they often don't go searching for it elsewhere. Um, but anyway, and it is true that I've never written a screenplay before, even though I do have experience with novels, which is why for my first screenplay, it would probably be better for me to collaborate with someone. Even if I were to do an adaptation of my work as a screenplay, it would probably be better if we collaborated and they could help me with things like structure and screen directions, and I could primarily be the one to write the dialogue and to come up with the overall theming and story. But it would be a collaborative effort, and typically I don't like collaborative efforts, but I would in that case because I would be inexperienced. But anyway, my idea for the next James Bond film, if they do one, would actually be to eventually, I think it would be a good idea to make M the villain. I actually think that would be a very clever twist. It wouldn't be a good idea, though, for the first reinvention of James Bond. To me, that would only work if you had known the M actor through several outings and then he turned. So I don't think that would, because then you would have trusted him, so it would feel more like a betrayal. So I don't think that would work until maybe his third or fourth outing. But I do have an idea for a James Bond film that I do think would be good, especially if you were to set it in modern times. I think that it could be about a social media company, an evil social media company, or at least the mogul is evil, kind of like an Elon Musk type figure. And it could be about the hubris of technology and how the femme fatale or the Bond girl could be a social media influencer who is also somewhat of a cult leader, who she acts like she's the victim of this villain, but of course she's not. She's actually an accomplice. And my real what would really make it though interesting to me is that towards the end of the film, you have it where this villain is chasing Bond on a helicopter or something, and they're both in the air, or maybe it could be a plane or something. But Bond figures out that that the helicopter or the plane has not been properly designed, and so what he figures out to do is that he just makes the plane while it's chasing him move a certain way and through certain circles and maneuvers until it explodes because the CEO was overconfident in his abilities, and I actually think that would show the hubris of technology and how Bond's ways are better in some cases. And so I think that would actually be a way to keep Bond relevant, but also you should do it in a way where even though it's set in modern day, you could still have a classical score and have the characters dress fashionably. So I think you can make Bond old fashioned without necessarily setting him in the past. There are many kinds. Usually, I'm all for period pieces, but the thing is with Bond is that he's already been. A lot of people say take it back to the '60s. Well, but we already have '60s films with Bond. They were with Sean Connery, and so I think this would be a way of keeping the story fresh, but also um, adding something new. And if I were writing it, of course, I would try to give Bond, I would try to give the dialogue, because the thing would be difficult for me is that my dialogue tends to be very heightened, very period, and I would try to tone it down a little, but I think that I could heighten the dialogue a little and give it somewhat of a poetic flair, but not so much that it no longer feels like Bond. I think that I could straddle that line, even though it would be difficult. And so I think that if I wrote it, I think you would come off with an intelligent Bond film that is also unique in its own right. But of course, I'm not going to write it because I have no connections in that area. But that would be my idea for the first Bond film. And then in a later film, I think it would be a good idea to make M the villain. But it wouldn't be a good idea for the first film. But, and again, I would flesh this out a lot more if I were actually writing it. But overall, that would be my idea for a Bond film.